Everyone back to our weekly Chaburah. I missed all of you. It was a special Chag for me. I hope it was a special Chag for you. I want to just mention that Rav Hutner used to say that a person should never say that a Yontif came and went. But a person should always look at it like he went through another Yom Tov. Because holidays, Yom Tovim, special moments of inspiration, they don't just come into a person's life and just when it's over they leave. But rather, special days, they actually stay with a person, even in the recess of his mind and his neshama. So a person goes through Yom Tovim. He doesn't just, pass Yom Tovim or Yom Tovim pass him. I'd like to take this opportunity, actually, I forgot to mention, to thank Chazaq, to thank Torah Anytime for sponsoring and for being a vehicle to spread Torah to the masses. So thank you to Chazaq and thank you to Torah Anytime. Anyway, this week's Parshiyot, or Parsha Tazria-Metzora, which discuss a few things, but mostly discusses a person that has tzaras, a person that speaks Lashon Hara, a person that was loose with his tongue, and there's many other sins that a person can do to get tzaras, but the one that most people seem to refer to is the one of Lashon Hara, which causes a person to have, like I said, to become a Metzora, and then there's a whole process. He has to have the Kohen come and check on him. So we're going to get to that in a few moments, but I just want to discuss the first thing that Parshas Tazria talks about. And the first thing that Parshas Tazria talk about is actually a woman that gives birth. A woman that gives birth, and it depends what she has. If she has a boy, she's tameh for 7 days. If she has a girl, she's tameh for 14 days. And then for the next 40 days, she can't eat things from the Bet HaMikdash. She can't be metamis things from the Bet HaMikdash. And 80 days if it's a girl. The real question here is that the whole section that deals with the Isha Kisazriya, this woman that gives birth, it's really a very, very minute section in the actual bigger picture of the two Parshiyot. Even though every letter of the Torah is infinite and every letter is holy, but if you look at the big number of psukim that deal with Tazria-Metzora, that deal with the Lashon Hara, that deal with the tzaras and the separation from the klal, it's a very much larger picture than the smaller section that deals with this woman that gives birth. So the question is, why is it even in this parsha then? Let it be part of another parsha. Let the parsha be just about Metzora. Why is even in the beginning of the Parsha of Tazria dealing with a woman that gives birth and becomes tameh because of it? She becomes impure. So I saw an unbelievable shot, which is that a woman that gives birth is creating life. She brought life into this world. She brought life into this world. Therefore, it's an unbelievable thing that she brought life into this world. A person that speaks Lashon Hara, you know what he ends up doing? He ends up actually causing death in this world. He actually causes a person that has leprosy, if not leprosy, I shouldn't say that actually, it's really not what it is. People make that mistake. It's not leprosy, it's something called tzaras. And a person causes death upon mankind through his speech. Through a person's speech, it says, Hachayim v'hamavet b'yad halashon. A person can cause life and death with his mouth. He can be positive, or he can cause people many, many, many miles away to suffer great suffering from his words. So the woman actually that gives birth is creating life with Hashem and her husband, obviously, but a person that speaks Lashon Hara is actually causing the opposite, it's causing death. So therefore, we start with life, because a person could create, and we end with a person through his mouth that can cause serious, serious consequences. So that's one of the pshatim that I did see. The question is, though, why a woman that gives birth, why should she become tameh at all? What is it about giving birth that should make a woman tameh? What is it about that when a woman creates life and we bring another neshama into this world, why is it that she becomes tameh? So I saw something really nice, that the Shekhinah rests with a human being. The Shekhinah, Tzelem Elokim, the image, the godliness is in a person when he lives, while he's living. So a child, when it's in the mother's womb, actually has the Shekhinah with it. He learns Torah. It's a boy or girl. They learn Torah, and once they leave the womb, what ends up happening? The Shekhinah leaves with that person. That extra Shekhinah that was with that child leaves. And therefore, once the Shekhinah leaves, a person becomes Tameh. Automatically, the absence of Shekhinah to a certain degree makes someone Tameh. And that's why someone that passes away becomes Tameh. Because he has a Tzelem Elokim, he has godliness in him. Once he leaves the world and his guf is lacking the Shekhinah, he becomes automatically Tameh. So the lack of the Shekhinah is what causes a woman to actually become Tameh. So therefore, the absence that happens is what causes the Tameh. Now, I will tell you also in Parsha Shemini, we discussed creatures and animals and what makes them kosher and what's not a kosher animal and what's not a kosher fish. So in Parsha Shemini, we talk about what a person shouldn't bring into his mouth. Now we're going to discuss Lashon Hara, which is Parshas Tazria-Metzora, what teaches what a person can't bring out of his guf, out of his body. Shmini tells you what you can't bring in or what you can bring in, and Parshas Tazria-Metzora tells you what you could take out with your words and what you can't take out. So that's also a little bit of a connection between Shmini and Tazria, and why after Shmini, which talks about kosher and non-kosher animals, we discuss Lashon Hara, which is pretty much in Parshas Tazria-Metzora. Now, I did mention, like I said before, that Hachayim v'Hamoves b'yad halashon. Lashon Hara is a very powerful thing and a very difficult thing. And I want to tell you, it seems very overwhelming. I'm going to be very honest, even for myself, at times where you want to say a good, not Lashon Hara even, you want to say a good joke. Or you want to say something, someone's going to laugh. But it's really at somebody else's expense. And I've been guilty of this. I'm going to be honest with you. Well, I want to make a joke, and I think I'm being funny, and I think I'm being cute. When in reality, if that person doesn't find it funny, or that person initially doesn't find it appealing for him, you're making a joke, but you're making it at his expense. So it's very, very careful. You have to be very careful always, even when you're kibitzing about someone, about Lashon Hara. So it seems like very overwhelming, how a person can live in this world and be considered with it, as we say, and not speak at all Lashon Hara. So the Chafetz Chaim actually was I wouldn't say the pioneer, but definitely in the last 100 years, the pioneer of Shmiras HaLashon. That's why they have Chafetz Chaim Heritage Center and all his Sfarim on Lashon Hara. People became more aware of the difficulty, but also of the positivity of how it can be done. So the Chafetz Chaim used to say that a person doesn't have to worry about not talking. You just have to just be careful in how you talk, and it becomes easier. So it seems daunting, and when you learn the halachot in the beginning, it seems like it's a difficult thing to accomplish, but with practice and work, a person will realize that it's not as difficult as it seems, and yes, you know what, it's a good thing. It's a good thing for a person to work on himself. So I'm just going to tell you a few stories that I heard. A few from the Chafetz Chaim, and then another story from Rabbi Aaron Kalda, what it means a person has to watch his mouth, how to be careful. So I heard a story from a Rosh Yeshiva. I forgot his name. It was in a sefer I saw somewhere. But this Rosh Yeshiva actually said that when he was a bacher in Radin, when he was 17 years old, he was in the yeshiva of the Chafetz Chaim, and the Chafetz Chaim already was already old enough where he didn't come to the yeshiva every single day. He was sick, he was older. So there would be minyanim in his house, very teeny house that he had. But he would come on Shabbat, he would come on Yom Tovim, but he wasn't, towards the end of his life, he wasn't coming every day to the yeshiva that he was the Rosh Yeshiva in. So what did they do? They would bring the Bachrim, especially between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, they would bring the Bachrim of his yeshiva, they would bring them to the house of the Chafetz Chaim. To get a bracha. So this Rosh Yeshiva said, I was 17 years old, and I was waiting my turn by the Chafetz Chaim's house. And I was waiting with awe and trepidation that I'm about to enter the Chafetz Chaim's room. Now, the Chafetz Chaim was known to have a very small house, a very small little shack, and he was known to have actually very bare minimum even in his room. He had a table, he had a straw bed, he had a washing cup, he had a light, he had some svarim, but it was very, very minimal. Actually, there's a famous story that goes around that there was a very wealthy man that came to the Chafetz Chaim once to get a blessing. People would come from all over the world to get blessings from the Chafetz Chaim. They would travel weeks by boat, by wherever how they went, just to get a bracha from the Chafetz Chaim. So it was a very wealthy man that came to the Chafetz Chaim, and he walked in. This guy had mansions where he came from. So he walked in and he saw the Chafetz Chaim's, how he was living, his living quarters, and he was shocked. The Gadol Hadar lives like this. This is how the Gadol Hadar lives. Where's his nice, floors and his furniture? So when he came to his turn to speak to the Chafetz Chaim, he asked the Chafetz Chaim. He said, "I don't understand. How does such a human being live?" Not that he was appalled, but he was surprised that such a holy man would live so simple. Wouldn't people support him? I'm sure if the Chafetz Chaim wanted millions of dollars, the value of today, he could have it at any moment. Believe me, if Reb Chaim Kanievsky wanted, $20, $30 million, within an hour, the word got out that he would want it, and he needed it for whatever reason, I'm sure he would have gotten it. People, Rod Yosef, same thing. Word gets around, people would writing, sending millions of dollars. People would do it. So he was surprised. So he asked the Chafetz Chaim, he says, "I don't understand. How do you live like this? Where's all your wealth? Where's all your possessions?" So the Chafetz Chaim said, "You're known to be a wealthy person." I guess he knew who he was. "Where's all your wealth? Where's your mansions?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" He tells the Chafetz Chaim, "Don't you know what I have back home? You know what I have where I live? I'm on a journey. I'm on a trip. I don't carry anything with me. I don't take my furniture with me. I have 2 suitcases and that's it. Because I'm on a trip. When I get back home, I'll have..." So the Chafetz Chaim says, "Don't you understand? I'm also on a trip. This whole world is a journey. This whole world, you're on a trip. You're a foreigner." The Chafetz Chaim said to him, "In this world, I only have whatever I need, basic minimum, just to be on this journey that I'm going on. In the next world, hopefully," even though he wasn't into it, "in the next world, that's where you're going to see, a person is going to see his mansions and his wealth, not that he needed that, he was just answering, that this world is a journey. It's a corridor to the mansion. It's your corridor to the palace." We have to view life like that. So this is how the Chafetz Chaim viewed his life. So this man, this Rosh Hashiva, was standing online, and finally it's his turn to walk into the Chafetz Chaim. This 17-year-old, he became a Rosh Hashiva, this 17-year-old boy. And he says over that, and when he walked in, he felt the aura, he felt the Kedusha, he felt the majesty, the majesticness of the Chafetz Chaim. And he walked in and he stood there, he was in shock, he almost couldn't move. He said, "I was standing there seeing this holy angel in front of him." And the Chafetz Chaim tells him to come closer. So he comes closer. Then the Chafetz Chaim tells him to come even closer. So now he's face to face with the Chafetz Chaim. And the Chafetz Chaim opens his mouth. This is what this 17-year-old, now Rosh Hashiva, said over. And I saw the Chafetz Chaim's teeth were very, very tiny. Little teeth he had. Very like baby-like teeth. Like we have from a 11, 12, 10-year-old that has these tiny little teeth. He said, "That's what they look like to me," he said. And the Chafetz Chaim said, "I want you to count the teeth in my mouth. I want you to count my teeth." He couldn't understand. How is he's going to put his face, he said, in the mouth of a lion? Who puts his head in the mouth of a lion? That's what he said. You're not scared to put your face and start counting? The Chafetz Chaim saw that he was scared a little bit. The Chafetz Chaim told him, "You know how many teeth I have?" He was 90-something years old, mid-90s. He said, "I have 32 teeth," which I think is the amount that a person has, amount of teeth. 32 teeth. He says, "And you know what's different about my teeth?" He says, "From when I was 9 years old," he said, "when I was a little boy, I never lost one tooth till today. Because I protected my mouth," the Chafetz Chaim told him, "and I protected my mouth by not speaking Lashon Hara, and Hashem protected my mouth by not me ever losing one tooth." When a person protects his mouth, he merits tremendous amount of siyata d'shmaya. Tremendous. These were his original teeth. From when he was a 9, 10-year-old boy, he said, he never lost a tooth from that day because he protected his mouth. So that's the Chafetz Chaim story about Lashon Hara. Then there's another story that I want to mention about Lashon Hara. I heard it from the Chafetz Chaim, a mashal from him, but somebody says he heard it randomly, so I'm not sure. But basically, there's a story that goes around like this: that there was a man, a very simple man, didn't know how to learn a lot, very basic knowledge, emunah, blind faith. And he comes to the Chafetz Chaim and he tells him, he says, "You know, I spoke tremendous Lashon Hara about somebody, and I don't know what to do, and I need forgiveness. And I know I hurt this person very badly. How do I get forgiveness for this sin of speaking Lashon Hara?" So the Chafetz Chaim starts telling him, I'll tell you what you do. Where do you live? And he told him, I live in a certain city, not far away from here. He goes, are there any like hills in this city? He goes, yes, there's a bunch of hills. Are there any hills that oversee the rest of the city? He goes, yes, there's a certain place that people go. It's a park, and you could stand there and you could oversee. He says, I want you to take a pillow. That's what he told him. I want you to take a pillow with goose, feathered down. And I want you to take this pillow on a cold, windy day. And I want you to stand on this mountain, this roof, this top, wherever, this hilltop. And I want you to rip the pillow and let it fly into the wind. That's what he tells him. So this man was a simple man, like I told you. He thought this was some Kabbalistic thing he was telling it, some secretive thing. He didn't know. So he did it. Comes back a week, two weeks later, and he told the Chafetz Chaim, he says, I did exactly what you told me to do. Am I forgiven for this Lashon Hara? So the Chafetz Chaim says, no, not yet. It's not over yet. Now go, 2 weeks later, and go find every single feather that flew all over the town. He says, I can't do that. How can I do that? So the Chafetz Chaim says, do you understand? That's what your Lashon Hara did. Your Lashon Hara starts in one place, but then it spreads. How are you going to collect it all back? How do you know who found out about it? How do you know who didn't tell this one, who told this one, who told this one? So this is the disease called Lashon Hara. This is the disease called Lashon Hara. So I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm just telling you a story, a mashal that I heard, but you see the power of Lashon Hara. See the power. Many times I come home and I have a juicy piece of information. You heard what happened with this guy, you heard what happened with that, and I'm dying to share it. There are times I slip up. I won't say I do not, and I feel terrible. I said, why did I have to say it? They'll find out anyway, and if they weren't supposed to find out. But then there are many times, Baruch Hashem, that I control myself, and I see bracha. I'm telling you now, as soon as I just say I'm not saying it, an hour later, I don't even have the urgency to even share it with anybody. And then you just feel like you protected something very special in you, and you feel very spiritual, very ruchnistic. It's almost like Hashem gives you a certain loftiness from actually protecting your mouth from speaking Lashon Hara. I want to tell you a story that happened with Rabbi Aaron Kotler. Rabbi Aaron Kotler, one of the big pioneers, Gedolim, Tzadikim from Europe that came to America, fiery tzaddik, fiery Rosh Hashiva, very, very holy man, Rabbi Aaron Kotler. And he would always have every morning before he started Yeshivas Lakewood, he always had people that took care of him. And there was one man that his job, that he took it upon himself, that he wants to serve Rabbi Aaron Kotler his breakfast and his coffee every morning. Rabbi Aaron didn't eat a lot, he was very busy, but he'd always have his one coffee in the morning that gave him a certain amount of energy, even though he was so energetic. But he had his one coffee in the morning. One day, this guy brings him the coffee, and he sees Rabbi Aaron Kotler probably was too busy, didn't drink it. So it got cooled off. Half hour later, 45 minutes later, he brings another coffee. And he takes away this one, he brings another one. And he's helping Rabbi Aaron Kotler with a few things, and he sees that he doesn't take the coffee again. So now he was getting curious already, because he knew that every day he took it. It wasn't now he purposely didn't take it. So he asked Rabbi Aaron Kotler an hour later, he goes, Rosh Hashiva, what is it that you didn't drink your coffee? You always drink it. Was it not that I didn't do it right? Was it too sugary? Was it not dark enough? Is the milk not fresh? He goes, no, you don't understand, he said. Let me explain to you why I didn't have the coffee this morning. And Rabbi Aaron Kotler told him, he said that I have a yeshiva with X amount of bachrim. At the time, this was in the beginning when he started yeshiva with 15, 20 bachrim. He says, one of the bachrim was read a shidduch to a very prestigious girl, very solid girl. But the bacher himself, Rabbi Aaron Kotler didn't say who it was, but the bacher himself might not be up to par for this particular girl. And I know the father is going to call me. I know the father of the girl is going to call me, and she's going to ask me information. She's going to ask me information about this bacher. Now, what do I do? On one hand, I can't lie. On the other hand, I don't want to speak Lashon Hara. I don't want to talk bad about anybody. So I didn't know what to do. So I decided I'm going to fast the whole day. Just that he should merit that the father doesn't call him, so that he doesn't have to speak anything negative about another person. Even though he was responsible to tell this person maybe that this boy, look into it a little more, whatever he would tell him. But he felt so bad that chas v'sholem, even if it's the truth, which is Lashon Hara, he felt bad that he might chas v'sholem have to say something that would cause derogatory or negative feelings towards another Yid, towards another Jew. So it's not very pashut. It's not pashut lashon hara. You should know someone that gets saras has to leave the camp after the kohen declares him that he's tamei. He has to leave the camp of the Jewish people. And you know the time, you know what it's like, how scary it must be a little bit when you have to leave in the dark on the other side of the camp, where you're on the other side where there were places that where people were there for them, but it's pretty scary that you have to leave the camp and go outside of the camp of the Jewish people of Klal Yisrael, right? But the message is a very powerful message. Your lashon hara that caused separation, caused division among the people of Klal Yisrael. Lashon hara causes that. So you need to sit away from the rest of the people to contemplate your action, to contemplate what lashon hara does, to contemplate the power of lashon hara. So when you're away from the camp, you'll think about, I'm sitting in solitude because you caused division, so now you are divided from your people. So that's the power, and there's many, many other things that happen. There's birds have to be a certain type of birds that chirp a lot, a certain type of yona, a turtle dove that chirps a lot. Why because it chirps a lot? Because your mouth chirped a lot. So many things that a person does, especially mida keneged mida, when it comes to special, when kapara, forgiveness, the mida, the crime is the punishment fits the crime, as we say. So lashon hara is a very serious thing. People take upon themselves daily shmiras halashon, and they take upon themselves to be very careful. So I will tell you that a person lives many, many years. Mi or ish chafetz chaim. Who wants to? That's why he's called the Chafetz Chaim, actually, because he wrote on lashon hara. Besides the Mishnah Berurah, and besides being the Gadol Hadar and the Malach that he was, the Chafetz Chaim, but he was actually known in the name in the world as the Chafetz Chaim. Why? Because it's a famous in Tehillim, Mi ho'ish Chafetz Chaim. Who wants to live long? Ohev Yom, that wants loving, living days of life. Liros Tov, to see good. Netzor Lashon Chamera. Person has to be careful with his speech. And I want to say, like I told you in the beginning, it seems difficult. But as you learn the halachot, and as you learn the importance of it, you elevate your neshama. You elevate your neshama, and you actually feel greater than if you said that little piece of information that you needed to share. And it's sad because we do live in a world of gossip. We live in a world of gossip. People make livings today. Non-Jews make livings through articles and magazines and newspapers and websites of gossip and gossip and gossip. You almost looked at it as like, wow, he has the best gossip. Whoever has the best gossip, that's who you need to know. That's who you need to hang out with, the gossiper. So it's scary. We live in the opposite of how a person should live his life. I also want to mention, by the way, let me see, does anyone know the time? What time is it now, please?
9:14.
Okay,
9:14.
So we're hoping to have a guest that's coming over to speak for 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes max. His name is Rabbi Newman, and he is a very big Talmud student of Rabbi Avrohom Miller. And yesterday was Rabbi Avrohom Miller's yahrzeit, his anniversary of his death. Now, I actually remember Rabbi Avrohom Miller growing up as a Talmud in the Mir Yeshiva. His yeshiva and shul was right across the street, a little bit in, but literally a minute walk from the yeshiva to his shul. And I would go there for Mincha and Arvit. I would daven there. I would sit not very often to his shurim. I'll be honest with you. People don't appreciate people as much as they should when they're living, and they only appreciate them after it's too late. So the podcast of Rabbi Avrohom Miller is insane. I don't know, like 20,000, 15,000 tapes he has. 20,000 tapes. I don't even know how many tapes he has. It's mind-boggling. He used to give shiurim. I remember he would start right after Shachrit, and he would give every hour for 7-8 hours straight on a different Masechta. Every hour. 9 o'clock Be'ah, 10 o'clock Baba Basra, 11 o'clock. Unbelievable. If you had pick your flavor, Kaviyachol, of the Gemara you want to learn, and he gave a share on it that day. So you're talking about like 7-8 hours straight, with a lunch break, I'm sure, for a few minutes. But he was a Gadol Hadar in so many, many ways. His understanding of human psyche, his understanding of nature, of science, the understanding of other religions. He was mumcha. He was able to. He knew so much. But I am going to share with you one little clip that I saw somewhere that was going around a few months ago. But I'll repeat it anyway. In honor of his yahrzeit. A grandson of Rabbi Avrohom Miller. It was on going around Daily Dose. It was I think on Torah. Anytime, I'm not sure, but I saw a clip that a grandson once came to Rabbi Avrohom Miller with a cup of water, and this cup of water was half full. And his grandson asked Rabbi Avrohom, Oh, for those here, I was just saying a story over because I wasn't sure when you were coming from Avigdor Miller. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder.
No.
So you're gonna be here in 1 minute. 1 minute, please come in. Robbie, right here. Okay. So they asked him Avigdor Miller like this. Zayda, his grandson asked him, said, Zayda, is the cup half full or half empty? So Rabbi Avigdor Miller, this is how he thought. He says, I don't understand your question, half full or half empty. When it's asked in the non-Jewish world or in the regular world, it means, do you look at it positively, life, or do you look at it negatively? Are you noticing the half full of a cup, or are you noticing that it's half empty? That's where the question is. So Avigdor Miller looked at his grandson and says, no, don't you understand? It's not half full or half empty. It's 100% full, he said. 50% water and 50% oxygen. It's not half empty. Nothing Hashem gives you is not full. He said everybody gets what he needs 100%. When you think something's half full, half empty, it's not. It's 100% full of what you need. Half water and half oxygen. And he even went on to say, how long can a person live without water? A few days, right? How long can a person live without oxygen? A few moments, right? A few minutes, right? Therefore, the oxygen is more full in a way than the water. But you look at it like it's empty, right? Because you need to look deeper inside a situation to understand that a person gets everything that he needs when he needs it. A person gets everything that he needs when he needs it. Without further ado, Kvodo, Rabbi Newman, we're going to call you in. How are you, Kvodo? Wow. Thank you.
Can I tell you about it? Such a tzaddik. I never met an individual like him in my life. Listen how he responded to a question. One of the biggest Hasidus in New York, they knew that I learned by him, or somehow was close with him. So they called me up and asked me if I could ask Avigdor Miller. He had a psychologist who was a mispal in his Bismedish. And they asked me to ask Avigdor Miller if he would recommend it. Listen how Avigdor Miller answered this question. So when I asked him, and he said like this: up until right now, he has a good reputation. So this tzaddik mentioned that when the Heiliger Avigdor Miller walked in the street, he was thinking about the Heiliger B'Shefer. So Avigdor Miller, he learned in Slobodka. So they went and people asked him, how did you end up like to be you? There's like nobody like Avigdor Miller. There was like mamash. So he said, after a while, he said he learned in Slobodka. So they asked him, but many other people also learned in Slobodka and nobody came out like you. So he said, because of Chaybas Alulas. But the truth of the matter is, he once mentioned something that was really fascinating. In Slobodka, there was a house where they used to go and used to meditate in that house. And he said on himself that he once went there. I'm sure he went there many times. But he said on himself like this. So he went into that house, and for about an hour, and this is what he said. This is what the exercise was. The exercise was, he said in Yiddish, probably in Yiddish, right? But in English it went down like this. Hashem is looking at me. 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 When you do that for about an hour, you're not the same anymore. You're not the same. Your mom is not the same. You're not the same. But the end of the day is, let's see what we can do with our personalities to make Hashem happy. Now that's a big concept to be able to say we could make Hashem happy. But let's see how we start davening Shachris in the morning. We say an unbelievable paragraph. Right after Bruchas, we say, an unbelievable mistaken. He said like this. Our Hashem, you have to know that this Hashem is your own real Hashem. You could talk to him. You could talk to him 24 hours a day. He never sleeps. He's always attuned to what you're going to say. And he's always looking at you. That's a fact. Every day we start off, Elokeinu v'Elokei b'Seinu. My God and the God of our forefathers, Avrohom Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, had the same Hashem that's here in this world today. The same Hashem. Now look what it says here. Zochreinu b'zikoron tov lefonecha. Hashem is saying, when you're going to start out this day today, well, today's already gone, but the night is still here. Hashem says, Zochreinu b'zikoron tov lefonecha. These 4 words are probably the most critical word of the most critical words. You know what you're asking? Hashem is saying, give me a good memory. Give me a good memory of you. Give me a memory. Give me a great memory of you. Give me a production. You know, look at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, you also see something fascinating. You ask Hashem, you see, you say the father of Avrohom Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, who's listening to how you just finished off this whole Shemoneh Esrei, and you're asking Hashem, I don't want anybody to be jealous of me. Let's say Hashem is going to bless the person with a lot of talents. Never show off. Chas v'shulam. Because a person can lose his talents that way. And I don't want to be jealous of anybody else. Now look what it says in these words. Listen to these words. I don't want to get upset today. But these 2 words that are coming up are the key to this life. I don't want to upset you, Hashem. I don't want to upset you, Hashem. Let's say it again. I don't want to upset you, Hashem. Now, if you could upset Hashem, vicariously, you can make him happy too. It's not a one-way street. Once more, we say, I don't want to get upset today, but the key is I don't want to upset you, Hashem. I don't want to upset you, Hashem. You know, it says Yimei Tshuva and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we say, an unbelievable Avinu Malkeinu. We say, there are many Avinu Malkeinus, but one of them, and it appears to say like this, Avinu Malkeinu Kozvenu B'Sefer Zechiyos. How does that work? You ask Hashem, Erev Rosh Hashanah and Erev Yom Kippur and all the fast days to inscribe me in the book of merits. And how does that work? You either have him or you don't. Correct? That's a fair question. How do we say, what does it mean when you say, Avinu Malkeinu, Kozvenu, B'Sefer Zechiyos? You ask Hashem, dear Hashem, write me in the book of merits. Listen to what the Gemara says. A person wants to do a mitzvah, and it didn't happen. Chishav lasses mitzvah v'nenas, and it didn't happen for whatever reason. Hashem says, you know how much I love you? Ma'ale olo lakosuv ki'ilu asu. I'm going to count it as if you did it. You hear? So you could stand on a fast day under the Shuni Yom Kippur and say, you know, Rabbi Shalom, I made a lot of mistakes this year, but I want to produce these mitzvahs for you. I need you to guide me and to guard me. I want to produce Limud Torah. I want to produce tzedakah. I want to produce that I could use this peh kodesh that you gave me and that you blew into me. The way that you envision me using my mouth. Says the Pusik, Chishav lasses mitzvah. You want to do these mitzvahs, but it didn't happen yet. That's just for wanting, I'm going to count as if he did it. That's our Hashem. That's our Hashem. You have to ask Hashem that He should guide you. The first kapitel Tehillim, I heard from my Rebbe Avrohom Walkin, you should have a lichtige Gan Eden, is the telltale and the key to all of Tehillim. The word Tehillim means to praise Hashem. And so the question is, on the first kapitel Tehillim, the first paragraph, where do we praise Hashem? It says, Asher Yish, praiseworthy is the man or woman, Asher lo yholach ba'atzas Hashem, who doesn't go with the counsel of the Rishon, means who are not doing the will of Hashem. And they don't, just because all your or many of your friends decide to do something that Hashem is not happy, don't go. Don't worry. It'll be unbelievable. If Moshe relates him or Yosha, and people Chaz v'Shalom speak against Hashem's children, so where do you praise Hashem here? And Rabbi Avrohom Zatzal said, if you're not going to be careful who your friends are, you'll never come to praise Hashem. So the first kapitel Tehillim begins, but how to make Hashem happy. You have to be very careful. You have to be careful, and you have to work on yourself, that your soul, your neshama, should be attracted to people who want to make Hashem happy. If you want to know where you're standing in this world in relationship to how Hashem looks at a person, you have to know who are you attracted to. If Chaz v'Shalom, you're attracted to people that you see, that you know what I mean, that don't make Hashem happy, God gave you legs to move on. Say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I made a mistake. Guide me and guard me. I want to make you happy. That's mamish life in this universe. It's critical that you take an English sitter or an English Tehillim, even an art school. What do you mean even? Art school, and to try to familiarize yourself. You think in English, learn in English. You speak in Hebrew, learn in Hebrew. You speak Yiddish, learn in Yiddish. The Parsha give us a brucha, all of us, in the Klal, in the Prat. Give us another chance, and another chance, and another chance to bring you the great nachas that you envisioned for us before you put us in this world. Let's finish with a Gemara, with two Gemaras. So you have to know the Gemara says in Niddah, approximately Daf 30, that before any of us came down to this world, a malach, an angel, asked Hashem all about us. Good looking, not so good looking, smart, not as smart, rich, poor, everything about us. Everything about us. Predestined. What can blow it? What could change that mazal? What could change that mazal? Now we know the word mazal is made out of 3 letters. Mem, Zayin, Lamed. Now the first letter of the word mazal represents mokoim. The spot that you're sitting here, in the chair that you are, that was predestined. But there's another mem, and Hashem's name is also mokoim. Baruch HaMokim Baruch Hu, He's also here. The Zayin represents Zman. This Chazaq organization, may they be blessed with all the Torahs, all the bruchas of Torah Shebeksav and Torah Shebal Peh. With the Heilige Tzaddik that Rabbi Meirov is here, he and his family, you're here. In this time, in this Zman, but the key to the Mazal is the last letter. That is in the Lashon. How a person expresses himself. It's the most critical to learn how to talk that Hashem is going to be happy with you. What's the proof? So we just finished with one Gemara in Nida, with a Malach coming to Hashem and asking all about you. A futuristic vision, all about the person who came and joined Hashem in this world. Now comes another Gemara that warns a person, be careful. The key to that mazal is the last letter of Lamed, which is Lashon. So the Gemara says in Ksibis, I think Chesom Beis 8b, in the middle, Kol HaMenavles, if somebody who's not careful how one expresses themselves, whether it's a male or female, Kol HaMenavles, whoever's not careful, and they sully their power of speech. Says the Gemara, Afilu nechtem lo exar shim shana shel tova. Even it was destined for them 70 awesome years, like the best. Nehepecha lo lero. They'll have reversed it. That's the key. That's mamish the key to this life. That is why Torah is kihem chayenu va'orech yameinu. Because everything is in the Torah. Everything is in the Torah. Mamish everything. Where do we see that? It says in Parik, Ben Bagbag says, Hafoichva, Va'afoichva, V'kuloiva. If you search and search, everything is in this Torah. If everything's in this Torah, let's end off in speaking about this unbelievable pandemic that happened all over the world, where millions of people passed away. So where do you have such a pandemic? And what did we learn about this pandemic? And it was all over the world, Jew and Gentile alike. Now what's unique about this pandemic is that a person passed away, they couldn't breathe. That's how we needed so many ventilators. They passed away from a disease called diphtheria. They couldn't breathe. They needed help to breathe. In Miron, they passed away by not being able to breathe, by suffocating. In Stalin, when the bleachers fell in, they passed away from suffocating. In Surfside, the building caved in, and they passed away from suffocating. So where do we find such a calamity? You know where you find such a calamity? In a Gemara of 62b in Yevamos, the holy Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, they passed away the same way. They passed away from a disease called Askara. Now that takes a little research to understand what went down there. Now, you'll find they all passed away from a disease called Askara. Do we still have a few minutes? Do we?
Yeah, like 1 minute, mamish.
Oh, they passed away from a disease called Askara, and that disease, you couldn't breathe. Now the question is, the very big question is, we know that every single Talmud of Rabbi Akiva was that Talmud. That Talmud had the ability to resurrect a person who passed away. So the question is, if they all didn't pass away in one shot, and it took about 33 or 34 days for them to pass away, those living should have resurrected their friends who passed away. So why didn't it happen? So in Brooklyn, there were two tzaddikim, big Talmidei Chacham, they're called the Kessin brothers. One of this Rabbi Kessin asked this question, and he said like this: before this happened, in Shemaim there was a big judgment. The Torah went to Hashem and said, how could you take away 24,000 such big Talmidei Chacham? What's going to be with all the Torah they were able to produce? All this food. And the Samach Meim, the other side, came to Hashem and said to Hashem, you mean to tell me that is the prince of Torah, is a Talmid Chacham who's going to malign his friend? Is that what it's all about? And Hashem accepted that argument. And that's what we learn. That's what we learn. And that's what we have to give Hashem, our mouths. So that we should be zoiche the bruch of psach libi b'soir secho, ba'achrei mitzvosecho tidav nafshi, brucha, vatzlucha, and a shmir sat shmai. Amen to all of you.